You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be covering the group stage of the T20 World Cup in 2022. It has been a thrilling tournament so far, with 7 of the 8 teams involved with a decent shot of making it through to the Super Sixes. I'm Jack Cope. I'm joined by Ross. Ross, have you been enjoying the group stage action?
It is a perfect advertisement for why cricket is great. There's been controversy, there's been jeopardy, there's been upsets, and there's also been hilarity, not just O'Dean Smith's performances. I'm loving it.
Great. Before we get going, just a quick plug of our Patreon. You can see it if you're watching on YouTube right now, patreon.com/thecricketpod, or it'll be in your show notes if you're listening to the podcast a little bit later on. Click the link, go and see what we've got. It's all really good. It starts from £4 a month and it keeps the show going. And if you're joining us for the live stream, or you're watching this at a later date, do click like, do click subscribe. And we've changed our chat settings so that you have to be a subscriber now to talk. So if you do want to send us abuse, at least we get something out of you in a quid pro quo. Also, to lead off the show, we ran a little poll on the live stream, which I've just clicked end to. Which team would be most dangerous in the Super Six? 61% of people said Sri Lanka. Ross, do you agree?
Yeah, I actually voted for Sri Lanka in that poll.
So you're one of the 6 in 10 people. Zimbabwe bottom. Just 7% of people think they would be a danger. Ross, I think the way we're going to do this is to have a chat about both groups, talk about the highlights, talk about the matches we've liked, the players we've liked, any major talking points, and then to give our predictions on who we think will go through matches taking place tomorrow and Friday. Thursday and Friday. Well, actually, you could have probably inferred that, couldn't you? Tomorrow and Friday. Well, yeah. We're going to start with Group B, because we didn't get to talk about them on the Sunday night show when we kicked off the tournament. And I think, in our preview, we said the Group B would be the group of death. It has, I think, lived up to that billing. So if you've been in bed, you haven't been paying attention to what's happening in the cricket, a quick summary of what has happened so far. On match day 1, we saw a pretty big upset. Some people downplayed this and they were like, "This isn't an upset," but I'm saying this is an upset. Scotland took down the West Indies relatively comfortably. We had more Mark Watt mayhem, bowling of 24 yards, bowling like extreme.
3 wickets from 24 yards.
Yeah,
mate.
yeah. He was good. I didn't say otherwise, did I? And then earlier on today, on match day 1 as well, Zimbabwe, they took care of Ireland. Well, Sikandar Raza took care of Ireland, and the 10 other Zimbabweans were in the team. And then earlier on today, we saw Scotland blow an amazing chance for qualification at one point, getting the win predictor up to 94% before Curtis Campher went Super Saiyan and hit 72 off 32. And the West Indies also found themselves on the brink of disaster before they used their real bowlers and came back into things to basically overpower Zimbabwe. Pretty interesting cricket, I think. All of those games, a lot of the line, the right amount of upset. Everyone's got one win, and we basically got 2 knockout matches to see who will make it through to the Super 12. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with today's recent game of West Indies overcoming Zimbabwe.
So West Indies overcoming Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Well, they overcame them, didn't they?
There was.
I've already said that.
It was a journey, wasn't it? It was a real journey for West Indies, because they clearly had a chat with the batsman and be like, "Do not throw it away." And they listened for the first 10 minutes of the innings, and it was pretty dull. And then they pressed the panic button again, or they pressed the clown car button. I'm not sure which one, but the circus was in town in the middle order. You had a comedy run out where Johnson Charles ended up on his backside after probably one of the streakiest 40s I've seen in international cricket. He looked like a club cricketer who was just there for a bit of a jolly. And then you had Pooran, who got out to a 40-mile-an-hour seamer from Sean Williams, where he fell over and landed on his face with a caught and bowled. And Jason Holder just knocked on back to Raza as well. And it was all looking pretty miserable for them. But Rovman Powell kind of dropped anchor really up until the final few balls that he faced, where he hit one into New Zealand. It was 104 metre 6 out of the stadium. And yeah, ultimately it was just, they got out of jail because Alzari Joseph, I think, as we said in our preview, was just too fast for the Zimbabwean batters.
Yeah, was it Akil Hussain batting with Rovman Powell when he hit the six, and Akil Hussain literally had his hands on his head in shock at how far Rovman Powell had launched that. West Indies in this tournament so far. So after the first match, their coach Phil Simmons, he called the batting unprofessional, didn't he? I think it's still probably
it's unprofessional.
It's still not very good.
They've not gone up.
It's still not very good. I think they were saved slightly by that final over, which took them from a position where it didn't look like they would threaten 150 to at one point looking like they might get to 160, and they ended up at 153, and that was a pretty defensible score. I think Winviz had that at 50-50. I think in matches like that where Winviz thinks it's 50-50, I'm always backing the Test Nation. It's it's not that Zimbabwe are a Test Nation, and it's not that they haven't got the players, but Obed McCoy, Alzari Joseph, Jason Holder, they've been round the block, haven't they? They're an okay bowling unit. What I did find a bit weird, and we swapped some messages about this on our Discord, was some of the early plans from West Indies. Defending 153, it's an okay score, I think, against Zimbabwe, but it's not a banker, is it? It's not 200. So open the bowling with Kyle Mayers, I sort of understood that, but then to go to Akil Hussain, I didn't really understand. He bowled a no ball free hit as his first ball of the match, and Zimbabwe I think they were on 30 after 2 overs before West Indies finally hit the panic button, brought on Alzari Joseph and Obed McCoy from the other end, and the two big boys picked up 3 wickets to sort of swing the game towards West Indies by the end of that first 6. Why are they in sort of such disarray? Are they rattled after the Scotland loss?
One, I don't think Pooran's actually that good of a player or a captain, if I'm perfectly honest. 2, it felt to me as if they had come into the World Cup with a bowling plan of Mayers is going to bowl the first over, then we're going to try spin in over 2 or 3, and then we'll get the seamers on. Today, Carl Mayers was bowling, and he was hooping. Like, he was getting the ball to talk. And there was a couple of moments where I didn't totally agree with where the field was, and Pooran standing up didn't really make sense to me that much, but it's not the end of the world. But the next over, if you're going to see that, put the ball in Obed McCoy's hands. Like, front load what you've got to do. Zimbabwe don't have a huge amount of depth in their batting lineup, so why wouldn't you target taking early wickets against this team and trying to capitalise on the advantages that you do have? They wasted they gifted Zimbabwe 30 runs and 2 overs. Didn't understand it.
That's basically what I thought. They've got one more match. We'll do predictions at the end. I think we've done enough for West Indies. Zimbabwe, anything you want to say about them? I mean, my note is Sikandar Raza has been excellent. I like what he's done with the bat. Having a great year as well, averaging 43 at 154. And have you noticed that he is doing the Sunil Narayan when he bowls? Hides the ball behind his arse.
Yeah, so I saw, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, but I saw someone said that he had like a tumor removed, and the strength in his shoulder, because he used to bowl with a normal action, he just doesn't have the strength in his shoulder anymore. Hence, he's remodeled it, and it looks like Son of Orion. So that's where it kind of comes from. And if I do figure out who it was, I will credit that insight. But I just can't.
That was your research.
My research stolen from Twitter. He's been really, really impressive. And I thought actually they've got. I like the spin approach actually. Like if you were watching Sean Williams, he wasn't really bowling spin so much, but they were both bowling slow. They weren't bowling kind of off spin, leg spin. They were both bowling slow, and the ball was still hooping around. And you saw it was really causing some problems for them. Burl bottled it big time for them. First over in a bit, he looked okay. I think he'd only gone for 5 or 6 runs in 1.3 overs. And then he bowled one in the slot to Johnson Charles, who slogged him nearly out of the stadium, and he pressed the panic button himself. And I think he went for 14 or 15 off the over, and it really brought West Indies back into that game. If he would have just kept his nerve and gone, do you know what, I'm going to try and bowl it in that slot again. I know I'm going to get hit for some boundaries against this team, but I'm more likely to get a wicket here. If I bowled it near the stumps, it would have been better. Big plus points in Raza and Williams, not so much for Burl.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I do feel my initial take on this tournament is that the quality of cricket is a bit higher than the tournament we saw in the UAE last year. But what do we have? Oman and PNG as two of the associate nations. I feel like Zimbabwe are a big step up, and I know they were excluded from that tournament, weren't they, because of some government interference in the cricket board, which. I think all governments do that in cricket, so I don't know what the government did, but it must be really bad. I'm happy to see them here, and I think if they did make it through, they are a team that will have their moments in the Super 12. So, I think a credit. They've done themselves a reasonable amount of credit, albeit that they couldn't quite deal with Alzari Joseph and Obed McCoy bowling a couple of really good spells today. Scotland and Ireland, they were in the earlier match, which. I don't know if it was a thriller. It was definitely an interesting match. It went to the last over, but
most runs scored in any game so far this World Cup.
Yeah, Ireland with the chase. Who do you want to talk about first, Ireland or Scotland?
Let's talk about Ireland, because in the preview, there's been a lot said around Ireland's intent going into this, and the change in management and the change in approach has actually was a little bit high risk, but it was high reward. If they would have batted like some of the other nations that we've seen in this tournament so far, they'd have got nowhere near that today. And Curtis Camphor really bought into we need to go do this. And he had a day out, it's best fair to him. He's now had a day out last year when he got 4 wickets in 4 balls. And today he's hit Ireland's top T20 score, I think it is. He's doing all right for them. But I like that we're a big proponents of that high risk, high reward approach in T20 cricket on the show, and it's great to see it come off, and it was a deserved victory for Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely, and a deserved victory for Curtis Camphor, who's played what might be the most impactful innings of the whole tournament. I think pretty incredible to score 70 odd at 225. Absolutely lit it up. Probably did 80% of the hard work himself, and they did it from a situation where they were effectively out, weren't they? They, what did I say? The win viz had got up to 95% or 94% for Scotland. Let's say that's being a bit generous to Scotland, and Ireland have got a 1 in 10 shot of winning. That's still that's a 1 in 10 shot of winning and a 1 in 10 shot of staying in the tournament. Chips are down, and then you play the innings of your life. That's I think he said afterwards, that's why I play the game. And it's like if you aren't playing the game for moments like that, then you're in the wrong sport, aren't you? At the other end,
don't you hate it when you win matches just by yourself?
At the other end, George Dockrell was pretty decent as well. Played his part. It wasn't as explosive, but he did what he needed to do to keep Curtis Camphor going. He's had quite an interesting career. Like, he started, I think, when he was 19 in the Ireland team as a left-arm orthodox spinner. Mm-hmm. And at first, people were like, "Oh wow, this guy's really good. He could play Test cricket for England." That was the kind of career trajectory that obviously us as arch colonialists had mapped out for him. And then his bowling sort of faded away a little bit. and he dropped out of the international scene. Rebuilt himself as a kind of hitter, a death over specialist. Has got back into the side. Now he started bowling again a little bit, but it's a really interesting career trajectory from him, and it's good to see somebody. I mean, he won't take the plaudits, and rightly so, because Curtis Campher has played the innings of his life. But an interesting career arc on George Dockrell to go from a left arm spinner who didn't bat to death overs hitter. Involves a little bit of left arm orthodox, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him popping up in the international T20 league and places like that moving forward, because he's got he's got quite a versatile skill set. And I think it sort of shows where Ireland's strength is. And the worry I have for them, and I think we probably talked about this on the preview show, is that their top order batting, if Paul Sterling doesn't fire, is a bit brittle. Like the averages are very low. They've got some pop, as you said, but I think they are liable for the odd collapse, and I'd be a bit worried if your game plan can't be let's hope Curtis Campher gets 72 off 32 again.
No, and I don't think that is their game plan, right? But at the moment, what we have seen is that the teams in the group stage, the conservative style has kind of benefited some of these people. That you need to have someone who is batting through the innings because they just don't have the depth in talent some of the other nations have in the hitting area. But it is what it is. Chantil in the chat says that Dockrell got Sachin Tendulkar out in the 2011 World Cup, so that is quite a career arc.
Yeah. What do you reckon his best moment is? Like getting Sachin out, or being involved in like that comeback victory, the 100-run partnership to keep Ireland in the tournament?
Oh, I don't know. Let's pose him that question on Twitter if he's on Twitter.
I think it would be getting Sachin out, but for him, he might think that this is like the destination for of his personal journey. Chattel also says their bowling is a worry outside Little and Adair, and I think that's probably fair. I think outside Little at the death, Ireland are a pretty exploitable team. They're quite fun. They're quite fun, and they wear green.
So they're difficult to see on the pitch. Let's talk a little bit about Scotland. I didn't think they actually did much wrong today. I don't think they could really have adapted their bowling plan that much with the kind of armoury that they do have. Sometimes it comes off, and sometimes you just run into a kind of a person having a day out like they'd run into for Curtis Campher. They've still got a decent enough chance of going through with a good performance against Zimbabwe. I don't think they did much wrong today.
To be honest, I don't massively disagree. They take the fourth wicket at 61 for 4 after 9.3 overs. So, Ireland still need 116 to win at that point. That's 115 to take it to a super over. That's a lot of runs off 10 overs. If it goes wrong, like I say, I'm sure there are moments where they'll look back and be like, I wish we changed this bowling plan, or I wish we tried that instead of this. But yeah, it's T20 cricket, and sometimes you do just run into a force of nature, and I feel like that is partly what happened today. I feel a bit sorry for Michael Jones, who got 86 or 55 opening up for the Scots. That's a pretty decent inning, and it will go unrewarded. Do you reckon they've got a decent chance? We'll go and move on to predictions. So Scotland will be playing West Indies in the final group match. Do you reckon Scotland have got a decent chance?
So yes, I do think so. I think their approach here is that they are a close-knit unit. They are seemingly outperforming the sum of their parts, and that's always a nice thing. But I think Zimbabwe are quite well matched.
Yeah. Sorry, Zimbabwe. I don't know why I said Scotland.
Yeah, that's right. So, but I think Zimbabwe and Scotland are quite well matched actually, and I think it'll probably be one of the games, hopefully, of this group stage if the rain stays away on Friday, which is a big issue for West Indies and Ireland, because if they do get rained off, then Zim and Scotland are going through.
Yeah, so my understanding is that the weather is most likely to affect the afternoon match, which is, I believe, Zimbabwe v Scotland. Let me just double check that before. So the match that starts at 9 o'clock in the 9 a.m. UK, Scotland v Zimbabwe. That's the one where the rain might come in, and that's part of why. So my two teams to go through are West Indies and Scotland. I think West Indies will beat Ireland in the morning. I think their power play bowling. Obed McCoy averages 15 in the power play. Like that's really good. He's bowling against a fairly brittle batting lineup. Alzari Joseph's a decent sidekick. If I were West Indies, I'd be kind of tempted to just be like 6 overs of that. Let's just try and terminate this game straight away.
I don't understand why they didn't do that today. Like I said earlier, like because and as we say, everyone knows the stat. If you lose 3 wickets in the power play, you lose the game.
If I were West Indies, I'd think about doing that. But I basically think West Indies are better than Ireland. Ireland do have a chance. It's not a huge golfing class. West Indies has got their own weaknesses, especially with the bat. But
1 to 5.
Yeah. But I think West Indies have a little bit too much, and I don't think that one's going to be rain affected. So sorry, Ireland fans. I'm going to say that's 60-40 to the West Indies. The other game, I think if it didn't rain, I would back Zimbabwe, but there's a decent chance of rain. So I'm going to say Scotland go from being like 55-45 underdogs to 45-55 to go through because of their net run rate, and if it does rain and they get that extra point, they are guaranteed to make it through the next round. Should be two pretty good matches, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
The group of death has lived up to its billing.
The only thing I can say on the matter is, please, West Indies, don't play O'Dean Smith. The guy is
what
rubbish. He was rubbish today. He misfielded so many, and there's always a single to him. Even if he was at slip, there's a single to him. And his bowling is not up to. He went for 17 off the over against number 9 and number 10. Like, he's just not a good player. And when he came in, it was built for O'Dean Smith. One hit his gut, and the other one he missed. So not a good performance for O'Dean Smith.
I think it's a bit harsh to have a go at him for not hitting 2 balls at the end of the innings. To be honest,
his job.
His bowling, I'd probably agree, is not amazing. But we could look. Chattel's working as a really good sidekick for us today. He did actually get Sikandar Raza out, didn't he? So
I don't care. I don't care. Watching him play cricket winds me up. Yeah, all right, fine. It winds me up watching him play.
O'Dean Smith had this one game at the CPL, didn't he, where he helped his team get like a bazillion runs right at the end. Did he hit 5 consecutive sixes or something like that? You can't not want to see a player like that. I understand if you're recruiting a side to compete in the IPL that maybe you want to steer clear of him. But as a neutral, players like that are full value. Because you have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea whether he's going to go. He's going to get hit into orbit. Whether he's going to fall on his arse. Whether he's going to smash a load of sixes. He bowls really fast. His fielding is quite hilarious. And he's the muscliest guy in cricket, probably, isn't he? So.
Yeah, but they just didn't even need to bowl him today. Literally, you just bowl Obed McCoy or Jason Holder again. You're not going to have to worry about the final over. Anyway, let's move on to Group A.
Yeah, let us know in the chat who you think's going to go through from Group A. Ross, I think, are we both agreed? We think West Indies and Scotland.
But just because of the weather. Otherwise, I'd be back in Zimbabwe to book them. But it should be a really good game.
I think that. Yeah, I concur. Right, Group A, here's what's happened. It's another exciting group. We have we're effectively in a situation where there are 2 knockout matches, except in one of the knockout matches, one of the teams can't go through. So whoever wins out of Sri Lanka and the Netherlands is guaranteed to be playing in the Super 12s. We can get to permutations as we go through because there's some stories behind that. And in the other match, unless Namibia lose, which would send the Netherlands through, they will also qualify. So in other words, if Namibia win, they go through UAE. They're just playing for pride now. This could be quite harsh on the Netherlands. They managed to beat Namibia in what everyone sort of thought would be the crunch match between the two sides, but because of Namibia's win over Sri Lanka, the group's still wide open. So even though the Netherlands are the only team in the group stage so far to have won both their matches, I think they've got a relatively low chance of making it through to the next round. Talking points. So the two games.
Mhm.
So we went into detail on the first round of matches on Sunday's show. So the two games, Netherlands v Namibia. It was quite a low scoring thriller. Should we talk about Namibia first, who lost to get the game, and I
Mhm.
think probably made a couple of mistakes in terms of where people batted and how long they batted for.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you've got a relatively conservative start, right? And their whole T20 approach is to have a solid game plan that gets them to a position where the bomb squad can come in at the end and really take down the last kind of 4 or 5 overs, right? Here, didn't really happen. They didn't give the time for the bombs to detonate. They literally just carried on batting at like a canter. And JJ Frinick, or Jan Frinick, although he hit a decent amount of runs, that was too slow on that run. It really, really did cost them. And it just, again, that allowed the Netherlands to bat how they needed to bat. Like, Netherlands should have gone a little bit more hell for leather. It doesn't look like they've got the players to do that or the confidence in the middle order to do that. They've not hit any big runs at all. But because Namibia left the door open, they could go up one run a ball typically, and then they could crawl over the line. Yeah, it was a missed opportunity for Namibia, I thought.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think in the last show we gave them loads of credit, didn't we, for being maybe the most clever team that we'd seen so
Yeah,
far.
canny
Yeah,
operators.
they were
Yeah.
really canny. I think they maybe took it a bit too far. You can't if you're. I mean, you should have retired somebody. You can't have
Mm.
David Visa and JJ Smith facing 9 balls between them. Like that's your whole game plan is effectively to launch those two, and
Mhm.
it it yeah they were lucky in a sense that they didn't get beaten more soundly and lose some of that net run rate advantage and have all sorts of things, all sorts of permutations thrown into the mix. I still think that having watched them, they're much better than AE. Two teams in the Netherlands. Netherlands had to play quite well, I thought, to beat. Yeah, Netherlands were terrible.
Mhm.
Still managed to get there. So I'm pretty confident that if I supported them, I'd still think they'd make it through. Anything else from them that you picked up on in match or any player performances that you wanted to highlight?
No, not in particular. I just thought, yeah, from a Netherlands perspective, if we're going to talk about those, the Dutch bowled well, and I think that they stuck to their plan, which was nice to see. Tim Pringle, the best man named after crisps in the World Cup, is doing pretty well. It's fair to say, and was backed up better than he was in the last game. But I just don't understand why they didn't like try to hit runs a little bit quicker, like just to try and boost that net run rate just a little bit because they were in control for pretty much all of that innings.
Yeah,
And
I don't really get
there's
it
a
either.
lack of I think there might just be like a real lack of confidence in that bit.
They went a long time without winning a match at the World Cup, didn't they? And then in the last match, they should have cruised it easily, chasing 112. Was it 112? Not very many runs. I think it would have been the lowest score ever defended at a World Cup, and they
Mm.
nearly ballsed it up. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few people just a little bit nervous, and the way that manifested itself was kind of by making them play in this ultra conservative fashion. I think in the preview we talked about how bowling is their strong suit as well, and like it really is their strong suit. They've got some fairly consistent batters, but in the last couple of years, the only player who goes over 140 is Cooper, T Cooper,
Mm.
and that
Tommy Cooper.
Tom Cooper, and that isn't. And what did he get? Six off six. Then he's out. That isn't great. Baz the leader, fairly consistent but fairly slow.
Mm.
Max O'Dowd, fairly consistent, strikes at 130, which is sort of at the lower end of acceptable. Isn't it?
And he did, and in my head, he did his job, right? In this
Yeah,
innings, actually, he probably did his job. He was there to kind of go, do you know what? I'll give us a foundation to then build up from. We're only chasing 120 odd.
yeah,
Like everyone else can then take a few more risks, and then he got out trying to take a risk because nobody else around him was
yeah.
doing so.
Colin Ackerman. I don't think no one's saying bomb squad about Colin Ackerman, are they? Like, perfectly capable T20 player, but that is partly because he can bowl as well. Like, that's how he gets into like the Manchester. Was it the Manchester Originals team this year in the 100? That's how he got the gig there. Was because he's got two dimensions to him. It's not because of his amazing explosive batting. They're a bit like that. Then with the ball, last couple of years, Klaassen averages 10. The leader averages 16. Van Beek averages 15. Like they're pretty good. They're an interesting team to watch. I think if they had like one proper batter, or maybe two proper batters, I think they'd be really, really handy. I think they'd be in that next tier up, that Scotland, Ireland level, maybe. Is that fair?
Yeah, bring back Ryan Tenderstarter.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Other teams in the group, UAE, they are going out, but they did make two pretty good memories, didn't they? First of all, the Mayapan hat trick. One of the only hat tricks ever in the T20 World Cup. Obviously, the first for the UAE. Did it with the googly, bowling the guy as well. It's what you want. A terrific moment. This is part of what a World Cup is as well. It's not just about finding out who the best team is at T20 cricket, and it's not just about competition. There's an element of sort of celebrating global cricket as well, and magic moments like that are good. That is a legendary thing to have happened. So it's great stuff for him, and at that point in the game, it actually looked like Sri Lanka were going to sort of wobble. Sri Lanka didn't wobble, but Junaid Siddiqui did hit a 109 metre six. So
and then did this celebration.
and then posed like a bodybuilder for the people listening on audio. So that was. Yeah, a lot of time for that. A lot of time, and like, as you said, they're here for a good time. They've got like, you know what? We're not going to get through to the Super 12s. We've got some okay players, but no one really going to stand out. I want to tell some stories to my grandkids that I hit a six at the World Cup. I took a hat trick. Like that guy could dine out for that for ages. Yeah. It's just some nice heartwarming stories there for the US. Yeah, they were good. They've contributed. They came really close to claiming that win against the Netherlands. But they could take things away from the World Cup. They haven't come and been pumped. It wasn't pointless them being here. And then Sri Lanka.
It's not a Papua New Guinea, is it? You're going away with some good stories there.
Yeah, well, look, Papua New Guinea brought the kit, didn't they?
Oh, that is true. That is true.
They were like,
they can bury them in the kit.
We know we're not going to play any good cricket here, but we will bring a kit for the ages. I was okay with that.
And some old men with us.
That leaves Sri Lanka to chat through.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people overreacted quite a lot to Sri Lanka losing the first match, claiming that they were almost certainly out. And then when the Netherlands won, people did it again. They were like, "Oh, pack your bag, Sri Lanka," as though it was beyond the realms of expectations that a Test nation could possibly destroy the cricketing powerhouse of the UAE. They did. I think they showed that they are. It was probably a bit of a fluke in the last match. They showed as well. I mean, they continue to show that their batting isn't awesome. But by winning by 79 runs, bowling the UAE out for 73, they took care of the net run rate problem, and it means going into the final match, they just have to beat. Just have to beat. It makes it sound like a complete formality, but they should win it most times out of 10. They just have to get past the Netherlands to go through. The net run rate up to plus 0.6. Are Sri Lanka still the dark horses? I think that's the question we have to answer.
So I think it would, like, the batting does leave quite a few questions, but
there's not a lot of answers. They've mainly got the questions.
We said in the preview, like, who to look out for Sri Lanka. Like, Nasanka was like the third top run scorer in the Asia Cup, and he was. Yeah, he understood the brief here. He was just like, let's get us as close to 160 as possible, so we can't fuck this up. He did his job fine. Unfortunately, the middle order didn't do their job. Asalanka is not going very well for him. Shanaka has now been part of 3 international hat tricks, so that's not moniker you want to be carrying around with you. Thanks to Nakul Pandey for that one, which I took from him his Twitter. And so. That it leaves a lot to be desired. In our preview show, and I think after they lost, we said that the spin bowling contingent of Tiksana and Hasaranga, plus the pace that they offer as well in Kamira, etc., was going to be too much for the teams that they're going to come up against. And that is exactly what happened here. Hasaranga took 3 wickets for, 8 runs or something in his 4 overs? Like, Tiksana did something similar. Like, it were just too good. And this is what I think people, as you say, people did overreact. Like, people do, like, Hasaranga is like in the top 5 spinners in T20 cricket right now. He has proven he cannot bat, though. Like, our assumption in the IPL, but we're not sure about his batting. That is bloody true. That
I think he can bat. He can bat a little bit. He probably Sri Lanka play him like he is Andre Russell. Probably not Andre Russell. He's probably more like, Chris Wokes, something like that.
I can't picture myself seeing him hit more than 10 runs in any innings. But anyway, but again, that worked well. Issue for them is Kamira went off the pitch injured.
Yeah.
After he was hit out of the stadium by.
What's the prognosis, Dr.
Siddiqui.
Ross?
Well, you mean Dr. Ganguly? Is he?
Yeah, Dr. Ganguly. Yeah, can we get Dr. Ganguly in?
Prognosis is that he's got a calf injury, so he's gonna miss the next 3 months apparently, and he's gonna require surgery. So he's not coming back for the World Cup.
He's out of the tournament.
He is out of the
He would
tournament.
Ganguly concur with that though. Is there a chance?
Ganguly would be just like, he could play on one leg, so he could potentially play.
That's
so
a callback,
pessimistic
yeah.
doctor. Yeah, pessimistic Ross is Dr. Ross is not giving him any chance.
Cool.
So, and
that's a shame.
That's a big loss for them. I think,
I think it is a big loss, and I think the Netherlands will be breathing a sigh of relief because he's the sort of bowler that blow him away. Anything else from Sri Lanka? I do think there's one thing to pick up on Sri Lanka. We had Nick Brooks on, who wrote a book on Sri Lankan cricket, and he picked Sri Lanka as the breakout star of the Asia Cup. Since then, 9 runs in 5 innings at a strike rate of 40, averaging 1.9. That was, that's classic cricket podcast. And I liked Nissanka falling over and his shoe coming off when he hit the slower ball for 4. It sort of got stuck in the pitch and he overbalanced and went down on his backside. Somehow lost a shoe. It's that's commitment. I think it might have been like the shot that took him to his 50 too. It was basically this tournament in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Like, it's been very meme-worthy so far. We had the little child falling over the railing with the dad. We've had Kayan or Khan falling over the Toblerone. So it's all happening. So Jack, just to say, so Namibia, we think they're going to get a decent win over the UAE and qualify. Netherlands. The only way they need to stay in the game against Sri Lanka and cause the pressure, I think. I'm not sure they're going to be able to out-hit Sri Lanka, but they need to not throw their wickets away and get themselves enough target. So 140, 150 to at least stay in the game and hope that Sri Lanka panic.
Yeah, and look, that could happen. That could happen. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. I probably... Well, I'm going to back Namibia to beat the UAE. I think that's pretty close to being a banker, that one, and I think Sri Lanka will actually rain on the Dutch parade. Afraid to say for Holland fans. Somebody has asked in the chat, and we'll do this as a permutations question if we can figure it out on the fly. If Namibia destroys the UAE, won't Sri Lanka be out? Now, I don't think they will be, because if they beat the Dutch, then they will be above the Dutch on net run rate. So I think it is just simple as that. Basically, between the Netherlands and Lanka, whoever wins that match goes through. Unless it's rained off or cancelled, or then the Netherlands, Namibia, it literally can go through. So that's pretty easy. A few other notes just to mention: Josh Inglis is injured. Did you hear about this?
He's cut his hand or something.
He was
like that?
playing golf and his golf club exploded, and he's cut his hand, and now he's injured.
Wicket keepers and golfing not going well this year.
Yeah, Shaheen Afridi is back. He's bowled twice in 2 matches now. Took 29 for 2 this morning. So that's a big boost Pakistan.
Huge,
Huge boost.
No, I don't think we can say huge anymore, right? That is massive for their whole approach, and
Yeah.
that changes them from what, sixth, seventh favourites to you're in good top four potential.
I
reckon.
would probably put them above South Africa in terms of getting through the group stage with Shaheen fit and firing, which he appears to be in the side. Reece Topley trod on a boundary sponge and has damaged ligaments in his ankle, so has been ruled out for England. What are the repercussions?
That's cruel. That is cruel. I know that Timar Mills has been called up, who's also had his injury problems and not such a good IPL, so maybe with a point to prove. And he was pretty good at last year's T20 World Cup, in my opinion. So it's a loss, but it's not a hammer blow. But it is a hammer blow for poor Reece Topley, who has struggled with injuries.
Cool. Final question came in from Twitter, Vivek. How good has the start of the World Cup been? Certainly enjoying this more than the Super 12 that will begin later. Is Joseph in the top 5 T20 bowlers, and what are our predictions for Friday games? So we've done predictions for Friday games. I think Joseph, we have to bear in mind that he was bowling against Zimbabwe today.
He's a decent player.
Certainly made some progress. Fairly new to international T20 as well, which is pretty. Didn't he take a sixfer in the IPL, or have I misremembered that?
No, he did. He wasn't he part of the champs this year, or was it when he was Hardik Pandya's boys?
I don't know. Maybe. I didn't think so. Possibly. Right, Ross. I think that probably brings us to the end of proceedings. 40 minutes on the clock, which is what we were aiming for, roughly. Thanks very much for joining us. We will be back.
He is part of the Gujarat Titans, mate. He is part of the Gujarat Titans.
The Ahmeda Bad Boys. We'll be back on Friday. If you're joining us live, it'll be lunchtime-ish. Are we doing lunchtime Friday, Ross?
We're going to try. We're going to try.
It might be Friday. Might be lunchtime. Might be about the same time. It's 4:00 today. Pleasure speaking with you. Pleasure speaking to you.
Goodbye.
Go and support the Cricket Pod at Patreon. Patreon.com/TheCricketPod in the show notes.